Good morning, Philanthropy's family. I hope you're all safe and well and feeling the Lord's blessings in your lives every day. I had an experience a few years ago I'd like to share with you. It was right after my mother had passed away, and it was late at night after my family had spent the whole day reminiscing with our siblings' families and other friends, and participated in the funeral and spent some time together, just mainly focusing on the wonderful person that she'd been in our lives. It had been a great day, but now it was the end, and we were feeling very burdened, very tired, thinking about the necessary task ahead of taking care of my parents' home. It seemed to be overflowing with a lifetime of possessions and memories and things that needed to be taken care of to prepare the home for sale before we could all return to our normal lives. The closest any of us lived was about 500 miles away, and I was actually twice that, and it wouldn't be convenient for any of us to come back. We were all very concerned about what to do next, and we'd separated where we were spending our night and gone to bed without really having a plan of how to proceed, other than knowing we would meet the next morning and decide. Well, that night I couldn't really get to sleep, and so I was up late, and everyone else in my family had gone to sleep, and I was reading my scriptures and seeking some peace after a very long day. I felt strongly that I needed to pray and ask for help. I remember this prayer being a bit different as I prayed truly with the energy of my heart, asking for help. I remember this prayer and expressing my love for Heavenly Father and knowing He was there and knowing that He could answer me and would answer me and tell me what to do if I had the faith. I remember at the end of that prayer staying on my knees and waiting for an answer. And after waiting for a short time, a plan of what we needed to do next just seemed to flood into my mind. And I quickly needed to grab a pen and paper and write it all down. Well, we've all been asked recently by President Nelson to learn how to hear Him. In the most recent mission leadership seminar, he even said these specific words. He said, "You too," and he was speaking to the mission presidents and their wives, but I'm sure he would mean it for us as well. He said, "You too can and will be guided by heaven in your work as you seek direction, guidance, and inspiration from on high." During another recent conference address, President Nelson outlined how to become the men and women, the Christ-like servants, as he called it, the Lord needs us to be through personal revelation. He then gave us these specific instructions about how to ask God and seek personal revelation. I have the whole list here, but I'm going to skip through and just highlight a few. He said to find a quiet place to pour out your heart, to turn to Him for answers and comfort, and then listen and write the thoughts that come to your mind. And it's important that we follow through with actions that we're prompted to take, and then repeat this process and increase our spiritual capacity to receive revelation. And by doing so, we will hear the voice of the Spirit more frequently and more clearly in our lives. What a blessing from a prophet. Remember my prayer about what to do after my mother's funeral and how I had received my answer? The next day I shared that experience with my brother and sister, and to their credit, they felt the spirit of it. And we followed that inspiration in how we went forward, and I felt like we were greatly blessed for it. I've experienced many answers to prayer in different ways in my life, but I chose to share this one because it followed this process that President Nelson shared, almost exactly. Our theme this year has been one heart, one mind, creating a Christ-like culture. Of course, the greatest example of being one is the Godhead. In D&C 93, 3 through 5, the Savior says, "The Father and I are one. The Father because He gave me of His fullness, and the Son because I was in the world and made flesh my tabernacle and dwelt among the sons of men. I was in the world and received of my Father, and the works of Him were plainly manifest." He was one with God, not simply because He is His literal Son, but because He subjected His will to Heavenly Father's. The flesh subject to the will of God, suffering the will of the Father in all things. If Christ was saying or doing something, it was by the will of the Father. It was the Father speaking or doing these things through him. Well, what about us? How can we be one with God? In D&C 35, the Savior says, that they may become the sons of God, even one in me, as I am one in the Father, as the Father is one in me, that we may be one. We are invited to be one with them as well, by following Christ's example and subjecting our will to God's. In order to do this, we have to understand what that will is for each of us. The way to do this, President Nelson again has clearly stated, personal revelation. He said, I urge you to stretch beyond your current spiritual ability to receive personal revelation. For the Lord has promised that if thou shalt seek, thou shalt receive revelation upon revelation, knowledge upon knowledge, that thou mayest know the mysteries and peaceable things. What a beautiful blessing. Are we truly trying to hear him in our daily lives? President Nelson has told us that the Lord has promised us the guidance we need if we will qualify. Through this process, we can become more like him, and by doing so, be of one heart and one mind. My siblings did not have to listen to me, and I believe they showed even greater faith than I did by being willing to listen and follow the inspiration I was given. During this time, I felt closer to them than I have ever felt in my life, that we were of one heart and one mind. This is the type of relationship that we should strive for each day as we are doing the Lord's work. Sister Neil F. Marriott said, when we give our heart to the Father and the Son, we change our world, even if our circumstances around us do not change. I pray that through the process of striving to be a little bit better each and every day, a little bit more like Christ, his will become ours, that we will have one heart and one mind, and we will truly have a Christ-like culture. This is my prayer for us as a Philanthropies family. Have a great week, everybody, and God bless.